Hey everybody, Yankee here. Today I want to take some time and I want to show you a side-by-side comparison of the new Beretta 30X Tomcat and the old Beretta 3032 Tomcat, in this case the Inox model. Now these are still very much the same gun. They're just a little bit different in a lot of places where it counts. Most of the changes are actually good. I like the changes on the new gun, but there is one change I really don't care for. Not because the change itself is bad, but because of something else, because of another side effect of that change. And we'll get to that here in a second. First off, if you look at the guns, they're still the same double action, single action, hammer fired gun with a manual safety. Now, there is no decocker on this safety, but here's the thing. It really isn't needed because you don't have to rack the slide to load this gun. On either model, new or old, if you want to carry it cocked and locked, you can actually do that. You just have to cock the hammer, engage the safety manually, and you can carry it that way. Or you can just load the gun without actually having to rack the slide, and you can do that because both of these guns have that tip-up barrel. You just push a button or a lever and that barrel tips up. If you look at the old gun here, it's a lever. You push it forward, barrel pops up. And if you look on the new gun here, the 30X, it's a button. You just push the button and it pops up. Don't really know which one I like better. Don't mind the button, don't mind the lever. So I'm going to call this change pretty neutral, but that is one of the big differences in the models. And with either of them, you just tip that barrel up, load your magazine, put it in, stick around in the actual chamber. You can see there, you could easily put around in these chambers, and then you close it down and it's ready to go. The hammer never has to be brought to the rear. Now, a big change you will notice on these two guns is the trigger. On the old 3032, it's got a standard trigger here, a curved trigger. On the new model, it's got a nice flat trigger. And the trigger is a little lighter, a little crisper, a little cleaner. That flat trigger, I think, though, makes most of the difference. That's why it feels so much better, because flat triggers really give you better leverage on the actual trigger. So that makes the gun feel a little nicer while it's shooting. Another difference you'll notice is the trigger guard. The trigger guard is more rounded off on the old ones here on the 3032. And if you look at the 30X, it's much more squared off, and I will say I like the squared off trigger guard better. I think it gives me a little more room, and I think with that flat trigger, it was absolutely necessary that they do this so that you would have enough room. So that's a positive change that was necessitated by the change in the trigger. Now, one of the biggest and best changes to this gun are the sights, both the front sights and the rear sights. If you notice on the older gun, the 3032, it has a fixed front sight that is just part of the barrel. It's actually a molded piece on the barrel. And the rear sight is pretty rudimentary. If you look at the 30X, the front sight is actually removable. You can swap it out, switch it to a night sight or other types of sights, whatever they end up making for it. And the rear sight is more of a Novak style sight. It actually has a little more meat to it. It looks a lot nicer and it's easier to acquire a target with. So the sights on the new gun are much better. And those are actually what made me want the new gun, even though I have the old one. Now that we've covered most of the differences between the two guns that I either like or I'm neutral about, indifferent about, let's talk about one change I don't like. And that's the mag release. If you look at them side by side here, you can see the mag releases are in different places. If you look at the 3032, the older model, the mag release is down low on the actual grip frame. It's actually in the actual grip. And if you look at the one on the 30X, it's more of a traditional mag release. It's up here right behind the trigger, and it's kind of butted up against the grip instead of being centered in it. So I don't really like this as well. I think the ones that are mounted down lower are actually better overall because of their placement and how it's not as easy to hit them accidentally. Now, it is harder to hit them on purpose, but it's not as hard to hit them accidentally. So I like them better down there. And the reason I'm not happy they changed it, if they had had this originally, I probably never would have minded. But since they've changed to this, you can't use the old magazines in the new gun. If you look at the mags, the old ones don't have a cutout at the top because there was no mag release up there. Now the mag release is up there, so they have to have a cutout up there. Now, one thing I will say is the old mags and the new mags both have the cutout at the bottom. So you can put the new mags in the old gun. They function perfectly, but you can't use your old mags in the new gun. They won't catch because there's no cutout up there at the top where the mag release is. That's kind of a bummer because I would like to use these flat bottomed mags, the ones that don't have the extension on them, because I hate when you put extensions on little guns and make them bigger than they need to be. The whole point is they're a small gun. So I'd like to be able to use this flat plate in the new gun. Now, I will add here that I have not tried to switch the mag plates yet. I'm going to do that tonight. I'm going to try to switch the mag plates over and see if I can put the extended mag plate on the other magazine and put the flush flat mag plate on the new magazine, and that way I can use the smaller mag in the new gun. I'll lose a round, but to me it's worth it to have the smaller footprint for the gun. So as you can see, side by side, the 30X Tomcat isn't that much different than the 3032 Tomcat. Now this one is different in the way that the other is stainless and this one is not. They don't really make a stainless one now, but hopefully they will in the future, although I doubt it. But other than that, like I said, differences are small, but they do add up to something substantial when you put them all together, because it was enough to make me want this gun even though I had the older one. Plus, I don't want to really carry and shoot the Inox one that I can't get anymore because, you know, it is more rare, a little harder to replace. This one would be easier to replace. Now, I do want to make one note before I end the video here. These are not the grips that came on it. The grips that come on it are plain black grips. These are the G10 grips for the gun. On the older gun, I have the wood grips, and I would love to get wood grips for the new one, but once again, you can't reuse the grips from one gun to the other because of that change to the mag release. I can't put these wood ones on that gun because they're not cut for the mag release up there behind the trigger, and they would have a big hole in them right here because there's no mag release down here at the bottom. That's one more thing you can't reuse. But as I said, this gun is definitely enough different to make it worth having, in my opinion, especially since you consider that it's not as rare as the older one. So I bought it. I like it so far. I've had it to the range. I'll have a review coming soon of how well it performed. And I think most people will be happy with how it performs. And this is a gun I'm considering carrying. So what do you think? Do you think I should carry it? Do you want to hold off and see how it does at the range before you make your decision? Well, let me know in the comments section below. But for now, those are the differences between the 30X Tomcat and the old 3032 Tomcat.